work 24/7, your attributes are just different. And you have to make that judgment based on those attributes. But don't allow yourself to be discouraged because you see someone else doing things at a faster rate than you, because your circumstances are different. And the discouragement is one of the great difficulties that people face. Is that if you were to go out and borrow $1 million to invest in the business, and you go to your family, you go to your friends, and you go to the bank, and you collect $1 million to invest in the business, you can't wake up one morning and say, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. It doesn't seem to be working out for me. I'm just going to walk away because your financial life is ruined. Perhaps you ruin the financial life of your family and friends as well, let alone that the bank's going to hound you for the rest of your life. Is that you can't say that, and so that you plunge through difficult circumstances because you know what it means of failure. There is a loss that will occur there that will impact yourself in a tremendous way. That loss occurs in this business as well, but not because of investment that is put into the business. The loss occurs in the loss of upside. Is that if you wake up one morning and say, I don't know, I don't think I'm going to pursue this anymore. There is loss that occurs. And that loss is represented that those people that you got started move on without you. Monty has a person in his downline. His name was David Rose, I believe. It's been quite a few years. And David Rose became an executive, and he had a woman by the name of Betty Sung who came to him, and he sponsored Betty in the business right before he quit the business. Betty Sung didn't care whether David Rose quit the business or not. She continued to pursue the business, and she became a dominant player here in the United States. And then when the business was exported into Taiwan, her group dominates Taiwan, and now that it has gone into China, her group dominates China as well. And so Betty Sung has made millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, and David Rose does not know. And we need to call him. But just because he quit doesn't mean that there was an opportunity for Betty. The opportunity for Betty was just immense. But he, for whatever reason, chose not to pursue the business. And that is the downside of not going forward with the business. Is that you don't have any loss in terms of your investment in the business because there's very little investment expenditure. But there's a loss of upside that especially in these types of times, that upside loss can be equally damaging. David Rose has lost millions and millions and millions of dollars, probably extends into tens of millions of dollars because he chose not to go forward after he started his group. And the group went on without him. And so what that means is that you have to guard your attitude because it's easy to quit because there is no downside. There seems to be no downside to quitting, but there is a downside to quitting, and that is the loss of the upside. And so make a commitment. Don't make a decision each and every day to do the business. If every morning you get up and say, okay, I'll pursue the business today, and okay, I'll do it today. Because if you make that decision each and every day, it's only a matter of time before you wake up one morning and say, I'm not going to do the business. Make a single decision because you will wear yourself out making multiple decisions each and every day. There's a woman in the business who was a lapis for 17 years. 17 years. Life circumstances did not arrange themselves perfectly for her. As she stayed active in the business in the last 3 or 4 years, that business has just exploded. And she has millions and millions of dollars of revenue that now comes into that business. And in part, it was the rearrangement of her life circumstances, but it was also the accumulation of skills that she developed over that period of time. And when I look at her and I think of what the potential loss for her as an individual and for her family, if she would have, in that period of time, said, well, I'm just going to quit. So make a single decision. Don't make repetitious decisions. only a matter of time until you make the wrong decision. Do your due diligence and make that decision, and then go forward. Understand just how valuable time is right now. I know that many of you don't understand this as you sit here, but you have chairs that have great value for you right now because of those elements that we talked about. I can remember in 1989, I was given a meeting somewhere, I can't remember where it is, where a person popped up from the meeting and pretty much ran out of the room. I thought, oh, I offended someone, I'm really boring. And so that after the meeting, I was surprised to see him come back in. And he came up to me and said, I just couldn't take it anymore. I went out and I talked to the person at the desk, I talked to the bellman. Here's the bellman right now. Can you say a few words to him? And so that there is a moment where you will understand truly how large the opportunity is. And you need to be driven by that fact. Is that when you understand it, it's worth the time that you invest in it, and that we are in those circumstances right now. And so make that decision to go forward and arrange yourself so that you can capitalize on that. Okay, so you're a new distributor. You've made your list. You've got 250 people on your list. You get to the point of being a lapis. And this is something that everyone needs probably to understand. What happens oftentimes is people become lapises and they come to a screeching halt. And the reason is that they come to the end of their 200 people. And it comes faster than you think. You think 200 people is a long list. It's not, because this is how that list will work. You will sponsor your sister, and your sister will say, don't talk to your brother. I will talk to our brother, and don't talk to mom. I will get your mom. And so that you lose your list in chunks, because that person will lay claim. You'll sponsor someone down at work, who will then lay claim to everybody down at work. You'll sponsor someone in the neighborhood that then will lay claim to everybody in the neighborhood. And so that suddenly, boom, your list being driven off in chunks, and you come to the end of it, you're lapis, you're starting to see the potential, and yet you can't make it work. This is one of the problems that are associated with a list of 200, and narrowing that list. Expand your list out and develop the ability to talk to people outside of your warm market. That's hard for many of you. That's hard. That's where fear of rejection starts to enter into your life in a very significant sort of way. But if you develop the habit of just sharing the business, then you will be better off. Women, quite frankly, are better than men. Women tend to be better sharers than do men. Men are sales guys. They tend to be a little bit more, okay, I'm going to talk to people, I'm going to set this number of people. Probably the ideal is somewhere in between, to where you have the habit of sharing what is taking place, and it's something that you develop consistently. Because if you do that and you develop that attribute, you will never come to that point where you're a lapis. You have ability to drive the business forward, but you seem to have come to the end of your growth rate because you've lost the ability to sponsor people because you've consumed your 200 people. Don't do that. Right from the beginning, develop slowly the ability to talk to people casually, or perhaps even in a sales environment, so that you are not limited by your 200 people.